Tell me a little bit about what's been happening to bring the city council to the point where you all are discussing permits or even a possible privatization of the open air space of the Red River District.
So one of the things that we liked about the Red River District, we wanted to increase um, not only visibility, we wanted to increase people going down there, patronizing businesses. So in the month of October, we had a lot of high schools that were celebrating their reunion, and they chose the Red River space in order to bring in those celebrations, which we were elated with that. However, by this being a new space, when I say new, we passed an open container law the earlier part of last year. And so everybody is not familiar with the process on what must they do in order to be able to occupy that space. You have businesses down there that are considered privately owned. So any businesses can advertise, come support my business. That's what they're doing now. However, once they step foot outside of that business, the Red River under the bridge is considered city-owned property. In other words, it's public. So anybody can patronize that, whether that's somebody who's patronizing the business or whether that's somebody that just kind of wants to hang out. Even our homeless kind of falls under that umbrella. It is a public space, no different than going to a public park. So everybody is able to enjoy public spaces. The issue arises is when we are experiencing large crowds or just even with small crowds, how can we ensure that everybody is safe? That public space is not an open area in a sense where it's visible from the road. It's kind of secluded, which means that we're looking at ways to making sure that we have cameras that have been monitored, but also we have some foot patrol walking through that area to making sure that everybody is conducting themselves properly and everybody is safe.
Absolutely. And I heard Chief Smith talking about the command center, and that command center did come up in the conversation. So, would there be a possibility until all of this is worked out for Shreveport Police to perhaps um, add more monitoring in that digital command center so that they are kind of keeping track? Oh, it looks like it's just a few people walking through a little foot traffic versus, hundreds of people gathering and potentially unsafe situation arising.
Absolutely. So it's twofold. Number one, we want to get the word out that if anybody is planning anything under the bridge, there is a process. If you're planning something, we're going to assume that you're expecting a crowd. So with that planning permit process, the city is going to ensure that we have the appropriate number of officers there based on the feedback we're getting from the applicant, based on how many people they're thinking they're going to be able to attract. If there is no planned event, we still want to have eyes on the ground through those camera system feed where we're monitoring the number of Shreveport citizens um, that are pretty much under the bridge or patronizing any business. We want to be able to monitor that. So if we do start seeing large crowds, we can deploy the appropriate number of officers to ensure that everybody is able to be kept safe.
I know that they mentioned, I think it was Councilman Butcher was comparing it to Bill Street. And I guess perhaps that's kind of a vision, right? Something similar to Bill Street, maybe something not quite like the French Quarter in New Orleans, because that's a mix, right? That's a residential and
Right.
businesses. There's 62 entry points to get into Bourbon Street from any direction. But something like Bill Street, that's a little bit more controlled, where at certain time of night there's an entry fee, a very small entry fee, so that they can provide for security. Is that the sort of environment that the city is looking to create downtown, something that could attract potentially tourists as we start to attract more athletic events. And we know Mr. Jackson is planning on potentially bringing back the Humor and Harmony next year. So is that what the council is kind of looking at right now? The potential to make this a tourist draw, right? Something that locals can enjoy, but also something that tourists can come kind of peruse. It's a nice little walk from one portion of downtown to the other. Is that something that you all are looking at in trying to construct this space as something that can be profitable, not only for the city, but also for the local businesses that are there?
So that is an option. Right now, I don't think we have the traffic flow, the consistent traffic flow to charge to get under the bridge, just to patronize the current vendors. When I say the current vendors, we only have three tenants that's currently under the bridge. We have Cassandra on the river, we have G Spot, and then we have another bar, Fatty Arbuckles. So I don't believe anybody should pay to patronize those three businesses. If we start charging just for entry point into that common area, I think we're going to hurt those businesses, and that's not what we want to do. However, if there's a large event, if there's a Human in Harmony event, if there is another large high school reunion where we can anticipate a large crowd, where people may just be coming kind of just to hang out, maybe not support the businesses. Some will, some won't. But if we're expecting a really large crowd in the shape of the event, then yeah, we may want to charge a small fee just to offset the cost of officers clean up afterwards, because we do feel like it's on the city to clean up that common area. Another thing that we're looking at between just it being a public space, if we decided to lease this space to a private entity that will manage this common area, the entire common area goes from being public to private. When it's a private area, there's a lot more we can do to keep everyone safe. We can post signs that says no weapon. If you think about it, the state passed a law last year that says you are allowed to have a weapon concealed or visible in just out and about in public spaces. That would include under the bridge, unless we had signs designated that this is a private area. So we can be a little more stricter if it's leased to a private entity, and then they can control who comes in, what area they come in, whatever they leave out of. So that's an option that we're considering here as well.
I was gonna ask about the gun situation because of the open carry act that was passed, and how it was kind of expanded the places that you could be present with a firearm across the state. And so I was gonna ask. I'm glad that you addressed that. Another thing is metal detectors came up. Now, I've been down there a few times for different events. Most recently, I was there when Big Frida was there performing, and we walked through metal detectors. And so I was wondering, are those metal detectors that are down there permanent? Or is that something when SPD knows that there are going to be X amount of people, then they post them up? Because I think even talking amongst ourselves here in the newsroom, there's a bit of confusion about the metal detectors. So are those the ones that are in place, those upright ones that you walk through, are those permanent?
No. So those metal detectors that we use on occasion for large crowds are temporary metal detectors. Metal detectors are not in our ordinance. There are something that the city can use and private business can use in order to help keep their constituents safe, but it's not required. No bar, no clubs are required to have metal detectors. They're not even required to search you prior to entrance. That's something that they do in order to ensure that no weapons are brought in, but they're not required to do those things. So that's something that we can look at, is installing metal detectors. Now, again, if this is a public space and we install metal detectors or we keep them permanently, then the city will have to hire people to man those metal detectors. If we lease it out and it becomes private, then the leaseholder will be in charge of manning those metal detectors. It will not be a city expense.
So currently, there are businesses that can have events. You know, if it like there's the G Spot Daiquiri Shop. So if they say, "Oh, we're gonna have a big Halloween bash," right?
Right.
Um, Obviously that's going to attract a lot of attention. The last time I was down there, I couldn't even get into the
Mhm.
daiquiri shop because there were so many people, right? I had to
Right,
get my
right.
drink down at Fatty's. But I think that permitting, is there a way that the city can kind of get a better grasp on who and when needs a permit, right? Because if my friend owns the G Spot and I'm able to convince them to let me have a little situation there, and my popularity brings more people to the space than the facility itself can accommodate. So there's an overflow into the open airspace.
Right.
Is the city working on a little bit more clarity? I guess is what
Yes.
I'm asking in
So
terms of
right now, what the definition of what an event would be, anything that is advertised, SPAR definition of an event is anything that is advertised. So they're saying anything that you advertise, that you put out on social media, they're going to constitute that being an event. And they want everyone, not just the tenants under the bridge, to follow the permit process if you are advertising an event. Now, if you are an extremely popular person and you just say, look, I'm celebrating my birthday, everyone meet me at G Spot. That's not, you don't really have a flyer, you're not advertising the event. So here comes the second caveat. If you are a popular person and you just told everybody to meet you under the bridge, and we go from having two people down there to 1,000, then we have to have a plan for that as well. This was not a permanent event. This was not something that was advertised per se in the shape of a flyer, but we need to have a plan when people just decide to go under the bridge because a lot of people there. It could start off with 10, 15, 20. People can get on their phones, they can get on social media and like, hey man, it's going down on the bridge. Everybody come out. And it could turn to a lot of people very, very quickly. So currently we didn't have a plan for a scenario like that. But Chief Smith is working on a plan to ensure that whether something was pre-planned through a permit process through the SPAR's office, or whether Under the Bridge just got extremely busy just on its own because it's becoming a popular spot. We're going to be prepared for both scenarios.
Thank you so much, Councilman Jackson, for joining me. I think
So through the permit process, in order to have access to the stage in the common area, you must follow that permit process. The city keeps the power off to that area unless it is permitted. So nobody has access to the stage. There's no band can play, no DJ can set up on the stage unless it was properly permitted. Now, tenants can play music from their respectable businesses, but not occupy the stage in that common area.
thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate you for talking to me today.
You're welcome.